Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Dustin Fox, Jason Lloyd, Tyvis Powell, plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Happy Friday, sports fans! Welcome to the weekend. 90 minutes here, 30 over on WKYC coming up at 12:30. We've got G. Bush, we got Jason Lloyd, and myself, and of course behind the glass, Mikey McNuggets. Mikey, what's up?
I'm doing good today, guys. Earl's going to come booth the WKYC show in a second. I got to head over to the Cavs practice facility for a one-on-one sit-down with Sam Merrill, so that's going to be coming this weekend.
Nice.
Should be a lot of fun, but today's show is brought to us by Epicor. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, Epicor will equip you with the right tools to move forward. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com.
Very good. We got Browns, we've got Cavs, we've got Guardians. We've got the whole
In both
smorgasbord
YouTube
of Cleveland
and
sports.
in WKYC.
Couple of big guests that we want to tease right off the top. Pat Boylan, who's a terrific play-by-play guy for the Indianapolis Pacers. He's going to come on to give us his perspective of the series. We're going to also give our predictions for the series. That's coming up on the TV show. By the way, if you don't have WKYC Plus and you want to watch us on the 12:30 show, you can download WKYC Plus. It's free. Also, you can watch all UCSS live stream programming 11 to 1 on the WKYC Plus app. You can watch it from your smart TV in India, in Russia. I think we're even available in China.
They have it on the Amazon Fire TV, too.
It is now on the Amazon
And
Fire.
the Roku, too.
I almost made a tariff joke, but I caught it and put it back in.
Oh,
Caught it and put it back in.
tariff jokes.
Nope.
No, Jason is our political gatekeeper. Whenever a conversation looks like it might be veering, and by the way, every organization needs one, and we are pleased to have you as our, because here's an example.
Crazy. We was going crazy last
Monday,
week.
Bull's sitting there before the show, and Bull, I won't say what he said, but
Right.
he said, "Did you guys see?" And I quickly responded.
Yep.
He goes, "Enough!"
While the countdown to the show the day after the draft,
Yes.
the first Shedeur show, the first Browns post
And
recap
Bull
show,
drops one of his political nuggets.
and the two Muppets are on each side screaming at each other.
And he tried to circumvent the deal because he asked me the question.
I know he did.
And I was in mid-sip, and Jay was like, what did you just say?
And I was like, nope, we're not doing this now.
Thank God
Not
for that.
today, Satan.
We got the Jason Lloyd. Nope. We used to get that when we would say, "Is there any chance that Baker works this out?" No. So my
was
favorite
funny.
meme of
That was
Jason
funny.
is the "Nope, we're not doing that now."
He says, not today, Satan. He said it in his Pentecostal voice. He said, I didn't know he was Baptist. You
Get thee
foul,
behind me.
you foul devil.
Get thee behind me. Can we
Boy,
get that as a meme?
That's a crazy
the
shirt.
Nope, Jason.
That's a crazy shirt, bro.
I don't think it was on camera's the issue.
No,
No, it wasn't, but
it
he's
wasn't.
done it on
before
camera.
the
And you know what? We can see to it that he does it on camera again.
Oh, it's going to come back up.
We just need to have Bull in at the same time. Oh, that was good. Let's dive in, Mike. I love the first question. I love it because it's been the topic of conversation, but I don't think it's been discussed enough.
Well, let's get into it then. Let's dive right in. Our show today, and our first topic of the day, is brought to us by Buckeye State Credit Union. Today's episode, as you know, is a proud partner with the Buckeye State Credit Union. If you're unfamiliar with them, let me introduce you to the financial friend you didn't know you needed until right now. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local brand offering a wide range of products, from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans. They have some of the lowest rates around and are committed to serving Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland location is in Shaker Heights, but they have 5 brick and mortar stores across the state. Buckeye State Credit Union is here to help make your life easier. They make banking more convenient, always putting the customer first, so you leave feeling cared for, valued, and respected. Connect, simplify, and adapt. Those are the core values that make Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. For more information, head to buckeyecu.org. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. So, Jay, you mentioned that first topic. We're going to dive right into it. We are officially one show week removed from the NFL draft. And as we all know, this is how the Browns' 7 picks in the draft actually panned out. They took Mason Graham at 5, Carson Schlesinger at 33, Quinshawn Judkins at 36, Harold Fenton Jr. at 67, Dylan Gabriel at 94, Dylan Sampson at 126, and Shedeur Sanders at 144. We have talked at length about each of these individual players. Shedeur being a 5th-round pick, how that impacts the battle with Dylan Gabriel, the overall quarterback 1 battle. But what if, and how would the conversations be different today if you took those same 7 players and just shuffled the order of the picks a little bit? So for hypothetical purposes, what if the draft order went like this? Mason Graham at 5, Shedeur at 33, Quinshawn Judkins at 36, Schlesinger at 67, Fannin at 94, Sampson at 126, and Dylan Gabriel at 144. Basically bumping everyone down. And for the sake of this, we're going to assume that those players would be available in those spots.
Yeah.
But, Jay, how would the conversations we've had all week and the conversations we will continue to have moving forward be different if that was the Browns draft reality?
I like our reality much better than that, and I'll tell you why. Shadur Sanders had his welcome to the NFL moment before he was an NFL player. A lot of guys, it's one of my favorite questions to ask, particularly of long-term veterans. Like, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? And as you think about this, Shadur Sanders' welcome to the NFL moment did not happen until he was drafted. It happened 2 days before he was drafted, when he didn't go in the first round, and when he didn't go on day 2. His welcome to the NFL moment was loud, it was clear, and I think it may end, if he has a successful career in the NFL, my hope is 5 years down the road, he looks back and says, the best thing that ever happened to me was sliding in the NFL draft. And here's why. I felt like he was insulated from the truth. What does that mean? His record against top 25 teams, I believe, is 1-11, something like that. It's not good. He had his number retired at Colorado.
Well, they're working on that.
What do you mean?
It hasn't been officially retired
Well,
yet.
they had the ceremony for him.
It's coming up this year.
Well, I thought they'd already announced that he...
No, it's ruffled a lot of veterans, a lot of
It
Colorado
has,
people.
and I hope they do. I think that could be one of the...
They've announced they're going to retire.
As far as he knew, he was going to have his number retired.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
He didn't have an agent. Why is that important? Well, agents are the bad guys. Agents keep you on the right track. What does that mean? When teams are saying about you to the media, and sometimes it does get reported, the criticism, they have no problem saying that to the agent. They want the player to hear that. Shadur Sanders was interviewing NFL teams in his mind when it should have been the other way around. NFL teams were interviewing him. And in the process, and this is now widely reported, he turned off a lot of those teams. We're talking about a club of 32. There are 32 general managers. And Jason, you know this as well as I do. On Sundays, they want to beat each other's brains in.
Yeah.
The other 350 days a year, they play golf together.
Yeah.
They eat dinner together. They drink brandy and smoke cigars together. And they talk. And when he implodes in the Giants interview, don't think for a second that the Giants weren't telling other general managers, wow, you guys aren't going to believe what just happened. Now, sometimes that's draft rhetoric. Sometimes, and it looks like in this case, there was a lot of fire to that smoke. Because he didn't have an agent and Dad was kind of serving in that role, Dad's the same guy that wanted to lead the charge to retire his number. You're only getting one side of the message. You're not getting the important stuff. The stuff that says, son, you're not quite the player you think you are. And I think this was the absolute best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns because of the value. And it's a quarterback-controlled salary if he ends up winning the job. And I think it's the best scenario for Shadur Sanders, even though right now it doesn't feel like that, because by some accounts, he cost himself $50 million. If that doesn't serve as a wake-up call, he can't be riled up. So I love that this is the order. And by the way, if I had to hedge my bet right now, I would say that this is going to wake this kid up. I think this is a good kid. I do. I think this is a good kid who has some ability. but his head had swollen to the size where it didn't fit his body anymore, and he fell over. So I think this really matters that this is the order that it fell out. Because if he was drafted 33, he walks into the facility in Berea for rookie camp and for training camp, and he still has that self-inflated value. Now he knows what the league thinks of him, and hopefully it's really irritated him, and he's going to put in the work to prove everybody wrong.
There's a lot of stuff on the outside in terms of personality. He has an ego, and listen, every quarterback in the world got an ego. All of them.
Facts.
We just sat right here and heard Joe Flacco say, now think about it. Joe Flacco wasn't humble about it. Joe Flacco said, look, I'm one of the best 32. Now, at that time period, he could have came on and said, you know what? I'll be a mentor.
Well, he won a Super Bowl, too.
I get that, but I'm just saying, I'll be a mentor. He wasn't trying. It goes. People always say it's about where you are with the league today. They don't talk about what you did 10, 15 years ago. They say what you are today. And if you ask Joe Flacco, is he one of the best 32? He's going to say yes. I want everybody to say that. I want Dylan Gabriel to say that. So for me, I don't really look at it as anything crazy. I look at it like this. Everybody knows Shedeur Sanders is better than a 5th-round pick. All right, that's great. You know, in terms of saying you're going to come in and humble him, listen, I already think that in certain aspects of his life, he already understands what he needs to do, and he understands what he needs to do to come in and try to compete. When you listen to him talk, you say, listen, all I want is an opportunity, and the Browns gave me an opportunity. I think that, you know, it's very telling that we are here a week after the draft. I've never seen this before. We talk about slides before. I mean, this is alone. We didn't talk about Brady Quinn this much. Brady Quinn slid a couple picks and it was crazy. But this slide has the world talking. Like if you turn TV on, everybody is still talking a week after.
5 rounds though.
I get it. So
we've never seen a slide like this. Nothing even close, Jason. Right?
But what I'm saying is that just goes to show you what people thought of him to start with. It wouldn't be a problem if everybody thought he was garbage. If everybody thought he was garbage, nobody would talk about it right now. They'd be like, well, he's not very good. But we know he has some sort of skill set. For me, I look at it like this, man. He's going to have an opportunity to come in and play. The money factor, sure, it might be a thing, but he was already rich. Like, it's not like he doesn't come from money. There's one thing that we talked about, Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel blew a whole lot of money, too. He came from a background where he had some money as well. My thing is, I think he's going to come into a situation. It's going to be good for him because he got to compete for it. And I think, you know, as you can tell right now, he's doing some things to try to ingratiate himself and back into, you know, the community and trying to go out here and show that I'm just a kid trying to come out here and earn a job. That's what he's trying to do. So do you think
it's better the way it worked out than if he would have been taken 33rd?
Yes, because you got a 1st-round draft pick, right? If they would have took him 33rd, that necessarily wouldn't have meant like they got the pick. I like it because they got a 1st-round draft pick, and if you look at the order of the way everything went, they still got all the players. If you look at nobody would have had a problem if you took him at 33 and you got Mason Graham at 5, and the linebacker was a little later or Dylan Gabriel was later. You still got the players. The ranking don't matter. I like the fact that they got these players. And what Mikey is trying to show is that if you mix and match and pull this guy down and give him enough different number assignment, Jason, that people will say, oh, I like him better at that number than what they took him at. But at the end of the day, they got the pick and the players are here. So
to Mike's original question, I think where he was going with this is if they took Shedeur Sanders at 33, we would be talking about him as the starting quarterback day one.
100%.
And that's not the conversation that is taking place.
And I think that
now.
Too is good for Shadur.
It is good. But there's another component to this. You mentioned we're gonna have Ross Tucker on later. I saw a clip this morning of Andrew Brandt on with Ross, and Andrew's a longtime NFL executive, worked for the Packers for a while, and is very plugged into the league. And Andrew said, I'm curious to ask Ross about this. Andrew said it's the biggest disconnect he's ever seen between how the media viewed a player and how the league viewed a player. He said if you ask people in the league, Shedeur went where he was supposed to go. Talking to people that work in the NFL based on his skill set and everything else, yeah, that's about right, 5th-round pick. And, I mean, I sat here, I'm just guilty. I sat here and said I thought somebody would trade up to 33 to take him. And so that was never going to be the case.
Jay, because I agree with you. As he was saying, everybody said he was going to be the a 1st-round pick.
Yeah.
That was the media. And I always talk about the disconnect between reality and what the media gets from the players in the reality
I think
world.
what happened in this instance was we talk all the time, Mel Kiper's the godfather of this stuff. We don't pay attention to the draft until February.
If his name was
January.
Shedeur Smith,
Yeah.
is he talked about as a first-round pick coming into this draft?
I mean,
Because I've asked that question to talent evaluators,
Yeah.
and they say, no
Yeah.
way. He was a partial product of the hype machine that is one of the greatest hype machines in sports. His nickname's Primetime.
But that happens a lot. Like, if you go back and look, is Zach Wilson the number 2 overall pick on skill set and talent? No. Zach
Well,
Wilson's
listen, no,
not good.
that's
No,
another issue because no one could understand that, and it's proven out to be true.
What I'm saying is the league also gets it wrong.
Sure.
All the
50% of
time. All
Trey
the
Lance.
time.
Yeah, Trey Lance. This guy is never going to play. So, hey, look, you can, a lot of guys do talk. There is groupthink that goes on. And here's the thing that I think happened with them specifically. They're like, all right, listen, do we really want to deal with that? All right, if I got this guy as, say, a second or third round pick, do I want to deal with the stuff that comes around him?
Right.
Or is my coaches not comfortable with it? And if they're not comfortable with it, they're going to pass. They'll
But
take
isn't
somebody
that
else.
part of being, because his last name is Sanders, isn't that part of all of that, G? In my mind, it is. And that's a great point that you made, because I believe it was Ross said earlier this week on Dan Patrick, and we'll ask him about this when he comes on, but he made a fascinating point that I had never really thought about before. He said there is a reason that guys like Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick didn't have an extended life cycle in the NFL, because when it became obvious to most that they didn't have starter skill sets, all 32 in this exclusive club were saying, I don't want the circus that they're going to bring to be the backup. And what Ross was saying is most of the people in that club were viewing him as a guy that was absolutely going to be the backup. And what they were saying was, we don't want to bring that circus to our town.
I think what they're saying, I think more in the case is, when you look at Tim Tebow, he had a massive fan base. He was a lightning rod.
He was a movement.
Tim Tebow, and by the way, great dude, by the way.
Awesome dude.
Colin Kaepernick at one point in time did take somebody to a Super Bowl. So I do think he had a skill set that was good enough to start in the NFL. There was just a lot of other things
Almost
that come
won a
around.
Super Bowl.
Almost won. So my thing is, if you take Shedeur Sanders, and what we're going to find out this year, a lot of people don't want this. They don't want the fan base or the media to push a guy, because what's going to happen is, if you got Shedeur Sanders on your roster, he's a 5th round pick. Are the people acting like he's a 5th round pick? No. He got his number 1 jersey. People like him. He has a following and a backing. So you don't, as a coach, Kevin Stefanski, don't want a position where you got somebody that throws interceptions, something goes wrong, Shedeur gets hot, and then all of a sudden people are yelling for him to go from the 4th guy in the depth chart to the 1st. Some teams, some guys can handle it and say, I'll give Kyle Shanahan credit. He's like, I'm not playing Trey Lance. Give me, I'm gonna put the 6th round guy in.
Sure.
That takes heart. That takes
7th.
That takes some sort of standing in the league to say, and the owner to trust you to do that and say, okay, that's who you feel gonna start. Play him.
Yeah.
But it's tough to hear that in your ear, Jason, when you've made a decision on who you want to play, and people are constantly saying, "What about Shedeur? What
Yeah.
about Shedeur?" Knocking over and over. I think a lot of teams just don't want that, especially if you're a bad team.
well, when you talk about 32, it's a club of 32. It's actually a smaller club than that, because of those 32, 28 have quarterbacks that they feel comfortable with.
You're right.
So it's really a club of 4.
And
3
by
to
the way,
4.
that number's gotten bigger. Typically, going into a draft, there's 6 to 10 teams that need quarterbacks.
Yeah.
This year,
It was
I
a
thought
lower
was
number.
an outlier
Yeah.
because there were really 4 or 5 teams that you could strongly identify that they are absolutely still searching for their franchise quarterback.
Well, if and when Aaron Rodgers signs with Pittsburgh, the Browns will have the worst collection of quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think there's any debate. As of right now, as we sit here today,
Sure.
who's worse?
I think that's very fair.
And that's why I think we're getting into it on the TV show about
We are.
Super Bowl odds and everything else. That's
Who do
why
the Jets have?
Justin Fields,
And who else?
Tyrod Taylor, I believe, is the best.
I might be able to debate that.
Yeah, maybe
I might be able to debate
They
that.
might be 1 and 1A, Jay.
I might be able.
But
to
you know
see-
what? Their Super Bowl odds are a lot better than the Browns.
I know. We'll check and see those later on.
But now they've
Tyrod
got
Taylor
a great
is the,
defense.
Is the backup? Just confirm.
Okay.
Tyrod Taylor is.
Yeah.
But
You know,
like you said, to your point,
Joe Flacco and
Bottom
Kenny
5.
Pickett or Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor.
It's interesting.
Do you want shot in the head or you want kicked in the nuts?
Right.
Which one do you want?
When we have all these conversations about all the Browns draft picks, the reality is, if any of them play well, it's going to erase any other negative narrative about what they do. If Shedeur, if Dylan Gabriel, if Carson Schlesinger, if Quinshon Judkins comes out, anyone who's anti that pick right now is going to be singing their praise come football season.
To that point, Mike, you're going to the hall with 4 bingo cards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the chances of winning at bingo when you got 4 in front of you are 4 times greater than if you have 1 in front of you.
Yeah.
So
I think if put it to you like this. That's why I'm excited for the quarterback competition, right? Because if we get a chance to see him play, we're going to get a chance to see all 4. We're going to go to practice, look at the reps. And if any one of these rookies hit, I don't care if it's Dylan Gabriel, if he hits, that is the biggest lottery ticket I've ever seen in my life.
You're right, yeah.
And the Browns have tried always, Jason. They tried with the Baker thing. It didn't work. They pushed all the picks to the middle of the table, gave Deshaun Watson some bread. Didn't work. They're like, all right, well, let's go take these flyers on these dudes in the late 3rd round, 5th round and see what happens. And if it don't work, guess what? We'll be right back at the table.
Now, if it doesn't
year.
work again, because this is the storyline of the franchise over the last 3 decades, if it doesn't work again, then at that point, you have a serious flaw in your, whatever your system is, it's busted.
I don't know if you can. I mean,
Jay, you can miss on 1 or 2,
but you're talking about a 3rd to 5th.
Right.
No, I know, but these are the guys that they're bet on.
Yeah,
they
but
passed on all the other guys. What if Will Howard hits in Pittsburgh? Well, that's an indictment on us.
The NFL just told you it's not just the Browns saying it. The entire league told you we don't like this quarterback class. The whole league said it.
And ironically, we took 2 of the best.
And I said before, because
I was an advocate of 2.
You have a year to fill between now and next year. You might as well pick up a couple of darts and see what you got.
And that's why I think what we're going to find out when the odds come out, they're going to be low on the totem pole or close to it on win total over and under. They're already number 32 by one site's metric on favorites to win the Super Bowl. They're the number 32 team.
Yeah, they should be.
So yeah, I think that's fair. Now
they won 3 games last year, and look at their quarterback room.
You mentioned we're going to discuss this on the 12:30 show on Channel 3, and I'll save some of the fire for that. But I also think that things happen. Who thought 3 wins was coming last year?
Yeah,
nobody. And it happens the other way too. There are times where teams are predicted to win 3 or 4 games and they win 8 or 9 games.
Washington went from 3 wins
look at Washington.
to the playoffs last year.
I mean, the Browns just did it. They played with P.J. Walker, DTR, Deshaun Watson, and Flacco. Like, I get that that's a rarity, but look, if you got the 2-time Coach of the Year, right, and we all think, a lot of people who stand for Kevin say that he's done a pretty good job with no quarterback, right? You have to think that he can get something out of these guys that he has. We want to see the development, right? You got, and they got 4 different prospects, completely different prospects.
Sure.
All 4 of them are completely different. He has the ability to now say, I could go veteran, I could go younger veteran that was a 1st-round pick. I got another guy who's an underdog. He's undersized.
Lefty, I can go
lefty,
righty.
I can go righty. He got a whole bullpen of guys.
Mix and match it like a bullpen manager.
That's all. And so when we see this, it'll be fun because you're looking at it. And by the way, we say give Kevin his guy. Give Kevin. He stood on the table for Dylan Gabriel, right? And by the way, I give Kevin a lot of credit because he could have took Dylan Gabriel and said, we're closed down, no more quarterbacks. But at least they looked and said, well, Shedor's here, I'll take him. The easiest thing in the world would have been to let him sit there and not deal with it and go into Dylan Gabriel and the 2 veterans and go next year. But he said, you know what? I like the value. I like competition. Let's see what he got. I'll give him credit for that because it'll be easier not to deal with the sideshow. Yeah. Would it not?
Yeah. I know we got a couple minutes because Pat's on the horn and we're going to go to him to talk Cavs. But quickly, one last question for each of you guys. The reason I also like the order, if, and I hope this doesn't happen, but if by chance we see in training camp in the first couple of weeks of the season that the Sanders circus did come to town, the primetime circus did show up, and that there is division, and that there doesn't, because Joe Thomas, when he was on earlier this week, said very clearly, we're going to know really quickly who can play and who can't. And I agree with him. I think he's right. If it's obvious to everybody in the room that, yeah, he is not the guy, either because of skill set or the outside baggage in the division that might happen, and I hope it doesn't. It's easier to cut bait on the 144th pick
Absolutely.
than it is the 33rd pick.
For sure.
And for that reason, that's another reason why I love the order of the way this draft fell.
I think Jason said it. You got a whole year until you want to do next. You play around with next year. They looked at it as a business decision. If he ain't gonna make it, we'll let him not make it on his own. Because at the end of the day, you put him out there, see what he can do, and people are gonna watch. People will see, and we're not dumb, right? Like everybody, like when you look at it, like Joe Thomas said, we'll see it. We're like, oh, that ain't it.
Yep.
Give him an opportunity to see what you got. It's not a lose situation.
The only thing I hate about it, I know we keep saying that, the only thing I hate about it is, what about the player you might have got with 144 that you'll never know about?
It's a special teams guy.
Well, in
the
most
fifth
cases,
round,
but where did Puka Nacua go?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
but you
so
can
what I'm
always
saying
find
is,
the anomaly.
There may not be. I think Puka Nacua is one of the greatest values in the draft recently. Obviously, San Francisco getting a quarterback at Mr. Irrelevant certainly helps. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that, I know that you say that, well, he's probably a special teams guy. Hey, they've drafted guys in the third round that didn't make it through their rookie contracts.
Right.
They're famous for that. I get that. But there will be someone in this draft that emerges as a star from the 5th, 6th, 7th round down the road, and it's always hindsight, but maybe that could have been 144 instead of the flyer you took on adding another quarterback.
I'd rather take the flyer on the most important position.
Yeah, no, you got to get that right, or none of the other
Lottery
stuff matters.
tickets.
All right, guys, we're going to talk a little Cavs with a special guest in a second. But first, one last reminder that gun violence, it's an epidemic in Cleveland. It's the leading cause of death for teenagers. And on this season of Living for We, we're asking what can be done to end cycles of violence in cities like Cleveland, where the shooters value their reputations over their own lives and see innocent bystanders as collateral damage. Living for We is more than a podcast. It's a resource for communities tired of chaos and ready to build peace. The mission is simple: empower communities to create safer neighborhoods free from gun violence by highlighting local heroes, connecting resources and solutions, and building bridges through honest, community-driven dialogue. Join hosts Marlene Harris-Taylor and Maisha Watkins every other Tuesday for a brand new episode of Living for We. Keep your head up. You can find this award-winning show wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch full episodes by searching for it, Living for We, on YouTube. We're going to bring in a special guest now to preview the Cavs-Pacers series. I know some people over with the Pacers. I texted them and said, guys, I'm trying to get someone from the Pacers on, someone who can talk some ball, and they all immediately said, you got to get Pat Boylan on. So guess what we did? We got Pat Boylan on, the Pacers play-by-play announcer, who's here to join us and talk some ball. How you doing today, Pat? Thanks for joining us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Doing well. Appreciate you guys having me here.
It's great to have you, Pat. Pacers are scrappy. They're a good team. They're an underrated team. I think that you can make the case they're the most underrated team in the Eastern Conference over the last couple of years. Not many thought that they would advance to the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago. Tell Cavs fans why this is going to be a much different series than the Heat series was.
Well, that's certainly the hope here in Indianapolis, although it would be hard for it to be much worse than the Heat series was from a Miami perspective. The Pacers the last couple of years have really been tested. They did not have home court advantage in the first round or the second round last year and won both of those series. As you noted, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And while they did have home court advantage against Milwaukee, it's hard to win a series when the other team has a top three player and you don't have a player quite in that realm. And so not only did the Pacers beat the Bucks, but they beat them in 5 games, a dramatic closing stretch there from Tyrese Halliburton. And look, the Cavs won 64 games and are the number 1 overall seed, and I think very deservedly the favorite here. But this is, at least should be, a few steps up in terms of caliber of competition for Cleveland as they get ready to host Monday.
I looked at the Pacers and I look at the series against the Bucks, and that was feisty. And the Pacers, aren't really known, for their fieriness or to be combative like that. But I was very surprised to see they was not playing around with the Milwaukee Bucks. Is that something that is kicked up because of the playoffs, or is it just because they feel like that's the way they have to play and that's the intensity level that they have to get after in order to get where they want to go?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of those things. And I also think it dates back to the playoff series with Milwaukee last year. Whenever you play a team back-to-back years in the playoffs, by the end of all of it, you kind of end up not liking the other team very much. And the Pacers and Bucks actually played 20 times over the last 2 years, counting the regular season, counting the Emirates NBA Cup from a couple of years ago. And no other team in the NBA over the last 2 years had faced off more than 15 times. So I think that was more of a familiarity breeds contempt type of situation. Look, I going into this, I don't necessarily look off the top of my head at Cleveland as a team that is going to start to potentially start things. And I don't think the Pacers are that type of team either to start things. But I think what you saw in each of the last two Milwaukee series is the Bucks realizing that outside of Giannis this year and outside of Damian Lillard last year, they were going to need to stir the pot a little bit to try to mix things up and win a series against Indiana. Neither of those things ended up happening, but I think some of that was a byproduct of Bobby Portis realizing, okay, we need to stir things up here to give ourselves a chance. And the Pacers are typically not the team that are going to start things, but if things do get chippy, they're not afraid to get involved in that. So we'll see. I have not sensed any sort of animosity toward this iteration of the Cavaliers. Obviously, going back with LeBron James, there was plenty, but this iteration of the Cavaliers, I haven't really sensed that. So I might be a little surprised if that happens. But when the playoffs come around, we've seen this in every single series almost around the NBA, at least the ones that have been competitive. At some point, you get that technicals are flying. So I can't say I'd be shocked if I saw it, but I don't think we're going to see it at quite the same level that we saw in Pacers Bucks.
Pat, I got to tell you, I was shocked that the team remove John Halliburton for the foreseeable future, I guess was the wording on that. Obviously, everyone's seen the incident by now. I said small market teams don't really want to disrupt their star players and tick them off. I thought maybe they would let the league handle any sort of discipline. Were you surprised that the team told them stay home for the foreseeable future? And was there other incidents that led up to that one that everyone knows about now, or was that really just the only one?
No real incidents. I can't say I was surprised, but at the same time, this is such a unique thing. There really isn't precedence with this. I thought both Tyrese and John handled it very well after the fact. Obviously, in John's case, he shouldn't have been out there, and he admitted to that. And it was a moment where I think he got caught up in everything. I've had the good fortune to get to know John a little bit, and I will echo what Rick said in that he's got a heart of gold, and sometimes he's a little too unrestrained with that heart of gold, but he really does mean well. He's a great guy, and I think Tyrese was the first to say it post game. He got on that podium and immediately started to say, in his words, "My pop shouldn't have been out there. That shouldn't be happening. We'll have a discussion." And so I think this is a position from a Pacers perspective of let's make sure this doesn't get out of hand. Let's stem this off right now. But I don't really anticipate that having any sort of play in the series. Unfortunately, it ended up being a lot of fodder for talk shows, and I thought that was unfortunate for Tyrese because he had this unbelievable moment. The Pacers are down by 7 points with 40 seconds left to go in Game 5 and had this miraculous comeback to stun the Bucks, and Halliburton had all these big moments on this big stage, and I wish the conversation were more about exactly what he did in that Game 5. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But I tend to think this is wipe the slate clean and move forward with it, and I don't really anticipate that being any sort of significant storyline here going forward into this series.
Pat, when we look at the upcoming series, Cavs and Pacers, Indy likes to play fast. Cleveland can play fast. Cleveland, I think, is a little better than Indiana when it comes to slowing things down if needed, and I think the winner of this series is going to be the team that dictates the pace better. From your perspective, what has made Indiana so effective at dictating their pace on opposing teams this season, and something Cleveland's going to have to keep an eye on and try to counteract once Game 1 tips off on Sunday?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to last year as well. The Pacers were playing at this breakneck speed, and other teams were struggling to adjust to it. And one thing that's really hard in the playoffs is playing at a really fast pace of play. The game slows down, it gets more physical. And for whatever reason, the Pacers, I feel like, have had more success than other teams that want to play at the speed that they do of keeping that up in the playoffs. That obviously starts with Halliburton. I mean, he's so good at those get-ahead passes and pushing things forward. And Rick Carlisle, if you watch him, he's going to look like a third base coach in baseball, waving the guy home on a single up the middle, because he's doing this constantly because he wants his team to go, and it's a constant reminder. And one of Rick Carlisle's biggest messages in that series against Milwaukee was, Giannis is going to beat you a lot, and he's going to finish at the rim a lot. But when that happens, when Giannis beats you, that inbound pass off of the make has to be instantaneous, because you want to make Giannis run the other direction immediately off a made basket. Now, the dynamics against Cleveland, to me, are extremely different. First of all, I think what the Cavs have done this year, adjusting and playing faster, has fit their personnel so well, and I think that's a huge reason why we've seen this massive jump forward in Cleveland. You got some great athletes on the Cavs, and maybe not always utilized as well as they should have been in previous years, and now they certainly are. So I don't think there's that big gap like there maybe was against Milwaukee in terms of wanting to play faster and the advantages of that. And then the other thing is, in that Bucks series, it was Giannis up here and everybody else down here. Cleveland very clearly has a level of depth from a star perspective, but just 1 through 8, 9, 10, however many they want to go, that Milwaukee just did not have. So it's an area the Pacers will look to take advantage of, but I can't say that I feel like it'll be quite as effective as it maybe has been in other series, just because the Cavs are a much, much more complete team. But one thing you'll watch is when Donovan Mitchell hits a shot like this, like Halliburton will be instantly inbounding the ball in. So their pace is not just off of misses and running. The Pacers will, when the other team puts the ball through the bucket, be running down on the other end of the floor too, and that will sometimes catch teams off guard. But you have to imagine that's a big part of Cleveland's game planning and scouting for this, so they won't catch them by surprise.
Pat, clearly the Cavs are favored to win this series. Not going to ask you to make a pick. Don't want to make news. Don't want to put you in that spot either. I'll ask it this way. The Pacers, to win this series, must do what?
Take care of home court, and I know that's not enough because Cleveland has home court advantage, but I would say the Pacers probably have to win all 3 games on their home court. I think the formula here for Indiana is very similar to what they did in this round against New York last year, which was they won their 3 home games, and then they stole Game 7. I don't know that it has to happen exactly like that, but look, it would be really, really hard to win 2 games in Cleveland. And so can the Pacers win 1? I absolutely think so. And if they can win 1, they're going to have to take care of their home court. If you look at the playoffs in the first round the last 2 years, the Pacers are 9-0 at home. They lost 2 against Boston, different, realm there. And to be fair, Cleveland is a different realm too in terms of caliber of opponent. But the Pacers have been so good on their home floor in the playoffs. That's absolutely a non-negotiable going to have to continue here in this series. An interesting nugget is the Pacers were 10-15 on December 8th. And from that day on, this has been a completely different version of this team. The Pacers, counting the playoffs, are 44-18 since that day. That's the 4th best record in the NBA. It's behind only Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and Boston is 1 game ahead. So I say that to say this. The Pacers are no question the underdogs. The Cavs are no question the favorites. But if you look at really the last 4.5 months, Indiana's been playing at a win percentage of a team that wins 57, 58, 59 games over the course of a season. So I would say the Pacers are playing better than their seeds would suggest. I would say they have the experience the last couple of years to potentially give the Cavs a really good run here, and if things go well, to steal the series. But Cleveland won 64 games. That's an absurd number. They had maybe the best first-round playoff series of all time in the past round. So, look, you have to give credit to what the Cavs have done this year. It's been absolutely spectacular. They deserve the 1 seed, and they deserve to be favorites in this series. But you never know. That's why they play the games.
Pat, who do you guys need to step up that may be on the fringes a little bit if you are going to get the upset in this series? Somebody who, maybe not be, one of the frontline names, but need a great series offensive and defensively to pull this thing out.
2 guys, they almost go hand in hand. You almost can't talk about one without the other. And look, we know the stars are going to be vital. Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and then on the Pacers side, Halliburton and Siakam. How those 5 guys play, I think, will ultimately be the biggest determining factor in how the series goes. But for the Pacers, there's two guys that really lift their ceiling to another level, and that's Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith. And Nembhard was spectacular in the playoffs last year, a big reason why the Pacers got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Really good in series number one. And then Aaron Nesmith was, I just thought, spectacular against Milwaukee and had two huge buckets down the stretch. He's been shooting over 40% from three. And a big reason why you kind of tie these two together, and along with Miles Turner there on that graphic, he'd be included as well. The Pacers are not a lockdown defensive team, but they've gotten a lot better. And the biggest reason is because of those two guys, Nembhard and Nesmith. So when those two are adding offensive firepower to their defensive game, the Pacers are really good and really dangerous. But I would say at minimum, one of them has to be playing at a really high level, and perhaps both of them at a high level to pull off an upset in this series. But they're very capable, and both were great against Milwaukee in round number one, and both have been showing the ability to step their game up when the stage gets bigger. So from a Pacers point of view, from a glass half full type of perspective, you'd say, well, if those two can replicate what they did in round one, the Pacers are probably a better team than they were in the regular season. But it's a big if. I mean, it's asking a lot for those guys to average 15 to 20 points per game when Halliburton and Siakam are also going to be doing those things. So I'd look at those two, and then Miles Turner probably a very close second. He was great in the Bucks series and is going to have to, I think, stretch the floor. Allen is a terrific center, but where Turner has an advantage there is his ability to stretch the floor out to the three-point line. So I think he's going to have to play really well also. It's one of those series where to pull off the upset, you can't probably, from Indiana's perspective, have many, if any, guys that you wouldn't say at the end of the series had a really good series. It's going to have to be, an all-in type of deal for the Pacers to win this. But again, as we've been talking about, they're very capable. They had that type of series against the Knicks last year, and they've won three playoff series the last 2 years coming into this. So they have the experience of the big moment, but this is certainly a higher caliber of opponent than they faced, I would say, in either of those cases, either the Bucks series and the Knicks series was probably their most impressive win. Winning Game 7 in the Garden is no joke, but 64 wins and the way the Cavs have played this year, I would say is a step up from what the Knicks were at this time last season.
We've talked about it at length here in Cleveland, the evolution of Evan Mobley, especially his offensive game here, Pat. When you look at some of the cross matchups, at least on paper, it appears Siakam would get the first knock at trying to guard Evan Mobley. Mobley's got some size on Siakam, but Siakam's got a little more veteran wiliness to him. If that is the eventual matchup, if Indiana decides to guard Evan Mobley with Siakam, can Pascal withstand the physicality that Mobley will bring to the game and try to take him off the dribble and bring him in the block? Because I know he's not as big as Evan, but it's not like he's a newbie to the playoffs in that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, the good news here for Siakam is he just spent a whole series guarding Giannis, so there's really no tougher assignment than that. From a defensive perspective, from a power forward or whatever. But look, I mean, Mobley is an unbelievable young player, and I think the Pacers match up really well with Milwaukee. I think there are areas that they can exploit against Cleveland, but there aren't these gaping holes or massive warning lights where if the Pacers can do these things, the opponent's going to be in trouble just because of the depth that it seems that Cleveland has. And Mobley is a great example of that, and then having Allen in the front court. So Siakam is a terrific player. He's Mr. Consistency. He's probably Indiana's number one leader because he's been there, he's done that, he's won a championship. You cannot overstate the significance of that trade and bringing him in and what it's meant to the Pacers the last couple of years in this playoff run. It's a fascinating matchup if it happens because Mobley is bigger, probably a little bit stronger, probably a touch more athletic. But Siakam has that experience factor, and he's just got an ability on the other end of the floor. As good as Mobley is defensively, which is top couple player in the league and defensive player of the year, Siakam has just a knack of getting shots off in tight quarters and all of that. So I actually think the front court matchup is fascinating. Siakam and Mobley, and then Turner and Allen. And maybe how those matchups go a very long way into the series. I think the Pacers had a significant advantage in the Miles Turner versus whoever Milwaukee wanted to throw out in round one. That's not the case here in round two. Allen's a former All-Star. and a much sterner test, I think, in the front court than the Pacers just faced.
So where are those areas do you think that the Pacers can exploit the Cavs? And then also, I'm just wondering, the series last year against the Celtics, obviously Boston's bigger than Cleveland is, bigger on the wings and all that, but was there anything from that series that they can draw on or they learned from going against a behemoth like that when they're faced with another one now?
Yeah, I think so. And to answer your second question first, I think the biggest part of that is just executing down the stretch in these close games. If you go back to Boston game 1, the Pacers kind of had game 1-1 and let it slip. And they were up by 3 with the ball with like 8 seconds left or something like that. The Pacers turn it over. Jaylen Brown hits a 3, and then the Celtics win in overtime. I'm not suggesting the Pacers win the series if they get game 1, but it's a very different series if they do. And the other 3 games, especially games 3 and 4 in Indiana, were extremely close, ones that Boston pulled out at the end. I know it was a sweep, and I'm not trying to suggest the Pacers were on the verge of winning that series. They weren't, but they were a lot more competitive than I think you might just look at that series on paper and expect. And so that's the caliber of opponent, in my opinion, that you're facing with Cleveland here. So I think just the experience of getting to play a team that deep. I mean, the Cavs 1 through 5 are tremendous, and Boston 1 through 5 is tremendous. And while Milwaukee has Giannis, top to bottom, they are not the same caliber of team. Frankly, I don't even think they're close. And so experiencing, the game plan is just so different because it's one massive player for Milwaukee and then a bunch of other guys who are capable, but you're not confusing them for all-stars, and certainly I'm talking with Lillard out. On the Cavs side, you got 4 guys who are all-stars. So it's very, very different in that regard. And, I think for the Pacers, we talked about the pace. I mean, this game is going to have to be played at a fast pace, although I do think Cleveland is capable of winning a series even if it is played at Indiana's pace, but that's probably the first area of where the Pacers could really take advantage. And then, Indiana's offense was terrific and for the most part against Milwaukee. They averaged over 30 assists per game. When that ball's moving, and as we talked about earlier, Nembhard and Nesmith are hitting their shots, then the Pacers really do have 5 great offensive weapons as well. So the formula for Indiana pulling off this upset is probably something along the lines of you win all your home games, Tyrese Halliburton is great, Pascal Siakam is great, and Miles Turner's probably knocking down threes and moving Allen out of the paint, which is allowing other players to get into the paint and scoring. Nembhard and Nesmith having good series. So it's going to take an all-in effort for Indiana to pull something like this off, but I think they're probably going to try to play at a breakneck pace as much as humanly possible and try to break Cleveland down that way, because when the Cavs get set in that half-court defense, they're just so tough. So how often are the Pacers in that half court? How often are they taking a shot with the shot clock under 8? If it's a lot, could be a long series for Indiana. If they're getting good looks up quickly, then I think they've got a chance to really extend this and make it an interesting series.
All right, Pat, excellent job. Enjoy the series. I know we will, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all having me. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Terrific insight. Very good insight. What was your biggest takeaway, Jay?
Real quick before that,
yeah.
Greg Popovich stepping down as head coach, according to Shams.
Just saw that, yep.
Interesting.
Moving into a team president role.
Does that shock you with the health issues he's had this year?
Not really.
Yeah.
Just because, he's missed quite a bit of time already.
Yeah,
so
he has.
A legend moving on from one role into another. He's going to transition to team president. So
legend indeed.
Didn't he serve 2 roles for a while earlier in his career?
Early on he was a front office guy.
Yeah.
And went to the court, went to the bench, and now he's headed back. In terms of, I thought Pat was spot on with a lot of what he said.
Yeah.
I do think if the Pacers try and play fast, I think the Cavs can match them shot for shot.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that in the playoffs. I mean, just look around. These series, if NBA basketball was like this all year long, the ratings would be through the roof.
Yeah, it's been so much better.
That's why I'm not looking at it like people say the ratings. Playoff basketball to me is some of the best sports
2 different
you can
sports.
watch.
Yeah.
It is.
It's wild.
It is.
Completely.
And I think it's been even more dramatic this year. The difference. Some of the NBA regular season action this year
it's awful.
Was abysmal.
It's hard to watch.
But these playoff games, look at last night's game.
Pistons.
Well, take out the 2 1-8 matchups. Cleveland destroyed
Those were
Miami,
the sweeps.
OKC, even though those games were closer.
Yeah.
That was a sweep. every other series has been competitive. Even the Lakers, who lost in 5, 4 of those 5 games were like down to the wire, interesting games.
I mean, the Pistons had the game 1 and gagged it away last night.
Twice.
The Bucks had the game 1 and gagged it away to Indiana.
We got a game 7 in Denver, LA.
Denver's Clippers been mad competitive.
Rockets, Houston has been back and forth. Not necessarily the greatest games every night, but they've had some good ones.
You brought up the Lakers loss. I don't know. Have you talked about LeBron's future yet on the show?
Not
Do you
really.
want to throw your thought? I mean, at the end of every year, he has the same sound bite.
I'm done.
I know.
done.
I am too. When I read it, I'm like, that's all lip
last year.
service.
I did wonder at the end of last year, like, could he leave?
Yeah.
And when he went back, I'm like, all right, we're done. I'm not having that conversation anymore.
Yeah,
He's finishing his career in LA. He's got his kid there. It's what he wants. He's not retiring.
Yeah.
He wants his media tour.
He'll be the only player ever to play 23 seasons, right?
I will look that up while we're
I
talking
think it's
Guardians
just he
in a
and
sec.
Grant Hill that have played 22. My memory could be wrong
It's
on
remarkable.
that, but
It's unbelievable.
I mean, and
You mean
I'm
Kareem?
wondering.
It can't be Grant Hill. Grant Hill didn't play that long, did he?
Look it up. I don't know.
Grant Hill didn't play 22
You mean
years.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
No, I thought. Hey, listen, I've been wrong a million times before.
No, Kareem couldn't have because Kareem was retired. But
There is another player. You are right. There is another player.
Who is he?
Relatively recent is a name that we all know.
Vince Carter?
Yeah, Vince
Yep,
Carter.
there it was.
I meant. You know what? I knew it was Vince Carter, and I don't know why I said Grant Hill.
Shout out to Vince Carter.
Yeah, Vince
That's
Carter.
a UNC Duke mix-up, Jay. Bad job.
I know, really bad job out of me. I've got North Carolina friends that would take my head off for that. But is that stuff important to him? Because he's always been a legacy guy. To be the only player, it now makes him definitively the most durable player in
He's not
NBA
going
history.
If you think LeBron's just walking away,
No chance.
he's going to have the whole tour.
He has hinted to
And
me.
he earned it.
He's hinted a couple times. He hinted it to me when they were here. He's sticking around for Bryce.
Wow, that's 2 more years.
That's 2 more
Two more
years.
Can you imagine 25 seasons in the NBA?
What did his stats look like this year? Was he good this
Oh,
year?
it was ridiculous.
LeBron?
Yeah,
He's
Bryce.
ridiculous.
LeBron. What did he average in year 23 or whatever it was?
I'll read you the
Not
stats, then we
far
got to get
off
to
his
Guardians.
career averages.
Right.
He averaged 24.5 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, shot 52% from the floor.
It's totally
This
nuts.
guy
It's
does
He's going to be a
not get
second-team
his just
All-NBA
due.
guy. Yeah, he's a freak.
And
An
we're
alien.
at year 22. I'm not putting 25 past him.
He'll play as long as he wants to play. He's earned that right, and he's still good
He
enough
has
to
earned
play at
that
a really
right.
high
Yep.
level. He's
And
not
I don't think the
number one guy
Lakers
anymore.
are as far away as everyone else seems to think they are.
No, I don't
need a
think
center.
so.
I
they
don't
need
think
a
they're
center.
far away at all.
They do need a center. JJ will be better
Yep.
second time around.
He will. He's learned from his year 1. And Luka, I think the growth arc for those two together with a big and some other pieces that they may want to tweak, I think this is a team that can next year be a factor.
If they get a big man, they'll be good. All right, let's talk about the Guardians after a quick word from Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, in practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. And at Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices, from small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions. We'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way, because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. The Guardians won again. That is 3 of 4 they took from the Twins. The floor is yours.
So much for that Twins prediction I had.
What did you say?
I had the Twins finishing ahead of the Guardians. They're trash.
Well, listen, I mean, a lot of people said that they were going to be a contender in the division, and right now, that doesn't look to be the case. Here's what my takeaway, Jay, was, and G, and I'm curious to your guys' thoughts. The margin of error in Major League Baseball is very slim, but for some reason, this team's grit factor, which I think should be a measurable stat, this team's grit factor is off the charts. They end up getting absolutely rinsed in game 1 of the series. In fact, if you look at their 2-game stretch there, I think they were outscored like 24-2 or something. Bats were silent. Pitchers were, Austin Hedges had to pitch.
The Twins were rolling when they got here.
The Twins were on a bit of a roll. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by how grit, I think, is the most important intangible in sports. This it's a flawed roster. This roster's a joke.
Oh.
It's a mess. It is in no way is this roster an 18-13 roster. After your first hitter and your third hitter, our two hitters, Nolan Jones, he can't stay there. He's awful. They've got to move on from him. They've got holes at the bottom of the lineup. You've got, at some point, you had a 160 hitter followed by a 176 hitter yesterday. You can't have that. Wow. All of that being said, and the pitchers have not been great. The starting pitchers have been way less than we thought they would be, and our closer is a shell of himself. And yet somehow they're 18-13, and I'll give you a quick example of how important grit is in baseball. So the last 3 games of the series, the Guardians won 2-1, 4-2, 4-3. All 3 of those games easily could have gone the other way. Here's where they sit if they had all 3 gone the other way. Instead of being 18-13 with the second most wins in the American League, they would be 15-16. And the difference in the standings, they're now 5.5 games up on the Twins. They would have been a half a game behind the Twins if they didn't grit out games 2, 3, and 4 in the series. And I don't know how to explain it, Jay. I mean, it's one of those things, you know it when you see it. This team grinds. Last night, or yesterday, was a perfect example. The game took over 5 hours with the 2 rain delays. They get into extra innings. They give up the run in the 10th. Now, they only had 2 hits the first 8 innings of the game. In the 9th inning, their first 2 hitters got hits. And so you're like, here they come. Here comes that grind again. Now, they loaded the bases. They left them loaded. They didn't get it there. Then in the top of the 10th, they give up a run, and you're thinking, they're going to lose it anyhow. But then they come up in the bottom of the 10th, and they score 2. It's like, what do we need? We need 4? Okay. They go out and get 4. They grind when they need to grind. And the absolute poster child of the grit of this team is Jose Ramirez, who yesterday did something that's never been done in Cleveland Guardians history. In fact, if you go and look at the numbers, no one's even come close to this.
They said that they just put him squarely in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, not that there was he needs to do it for longer, obviously, but he's on the Hall of Fame track, has been forever. 250 home runs, 250 steals. And yesterday, he gets the base hit to tie it in the 10th. He's on first. And I'm saying to myself, he's stealing this bag. There's no way in the world he's not stealing this bag. Jose could steal 50 a year if he wanted to. He steals when they make a difference in the game. He steals second base, then he scores the game-winning run because he was in the process of stealing third base and was able to come around and score on the single. The talent outside of Jose and Quan and Angel Martinez, who got the game-winning hit, the lineup is abysmal. It's close to a last-place lineup, but the grit puts them over the top. And that's my biggest takeaway from this Twins series. They could have easily lost all 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, I went on a rant on our group chat a couple weeks ago about this lineup. It's horrendous.
Weak.
But I actually do like Nolan Jones in the 2 spot.
I don't.
He's hitting it hard. He just has nothing to show.
Yeah, but he had an at-bat yesterday in a crucial spot. He looked lost.
He's got a lot of strikeouts. But the strikeouts are piling up. When he hits it really hard. He has nothing to show for it. I'm fine giving it. What other choice do they have?
That's the problem, Jay. In the offseason, they needed to address this better than they did.
Well, give it another month and see where he's at the end of May, and then adjust accordingly. I said to Bull yesterday, if Chase DeLauder's healthy in July,
that's a big if.
I know. And Nolan's still hitting under 200.
Throwing bullpens, live BP now? He starts in May.
Well, he's at 12 months now.
I know, but there was a lot of people a lot of folks were saying, he's not going to pitch at all this year.
Oh no!
And
I thought August.
I mean, he's trending very much so now to maybe All-Star break.
I mean, maybe the end of July. I still think it's best case scenario mid to end of July. Best case scenario.
I'll take it.
I mean,
imagine the boost that would be.
Oh,
to this
for
team.
sure.
Is there a case where you see people come back too soon from Tommy John? I don't never really hear it. All I hear is people come back stronger and.
Yeah, I can't recall of a case.
They are careful.
Yeah,
teams are careful.
And if anything, they err on the side of caution.
Yeah, keeping them out too long.
And it feels like with ACLs, they used to be. I feel like they've been able to shorten the window of ACL returns a little bit. Tommy John, it almost feels like it's going the other way, where it's like 14, 15 months now.
I know, it always just feel like a year.
Yeah.
And now it's more 12 to 15.
John Means is the one. I don't know that we're going to see him pitch this year.
Right.
But Bieber, I always expected. I thought he would be an August guy.
I hope so. I mean,
if you look at recent guys who have Tommy John at the end of April, their debuts are typically end of July, early August.
I didn't mean to take you off the track there. I just wanted to bring up Bieber. But on this roster that you've documented and we've talked about is just inferior. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
Whether Nolan Jones ends up being a hit or not, there's holes in the roster and in the lineup, and where there was a situation twice in this series where Quan was at the plate with a man on base in scoring position, and you could see the Twins worked around him. 4-pitch walk in one case. They worked around him to get to the weaker, inferior Jones, figuring it's a double win. You can get out of the inning with the guy hitting less than his weight, and you don't have to pitch to Quan, and now you can throw the soft stuff to Hosey because there's no threat of somebody stealing a base. He's not going to see fastballs. There is a trend developing this year in Jose Ramirez at bats. He's not seeing fastballs. He's just not.
I never saw him a fastball.
Well, he's seeing fewer than he has seen in the past, and I hope there's a metric that you can look that up. I'm noticing, particularly early in at-bats, he's seeing all soft stuff. And Jose doesn't like that. Jose rakes on the fastball.
Yeah.
You can't get one by him. And I've just noticed the pattern that's developing is here, two of them. They're working around Quan to get to the two-hitter, which should never happen. And then Jose's starting a lot of innings, and he's not a threat. And if he is, he's a one-run threat, and he's seeing a lot of soft stuff.
Yeah.
And they've found a way to neutralize our two best hitters.
I like Manzardo's progress this year. I think he's legit. Naylor's shown some life the last couple of days. Arias, I think, will be the shortstop by July. I've said that before.
Maybe sooner.
I've seen enough of Rocchio.
I have too.
I don't know who you put it. I mean, I'm not all in on Schneemann at second. Hopefully, maybe when Bull mentioned when Lane Thomas returns, move Martinez to second, put him back in his
natural spot. And there's no way
spot.
we're seeing Bazzana this year, is there?
He's not hitting well right now.
No, I know he's not.
So he's going to have to get hot. I thought July was a possibility,
but
he was going to have to get off to a good start. There's already one from that class up, Nick Wirtz from his class. Yeah, Oakland recalled him.
Oakland, yeah.
Well, not Oakland anymore, the Athletics.
Yeah.
Recalled him last week. That was the first from the Bazzana class to make the majors.
Wow. But that's like a 4A organization, too.
Oh, I
know they're playing well. They're playing better this year.
They are my second favorite team this year.
Yeah, they are fun to watch.
I love watching them play.
A lot of them's grit. They're overachieving.
They got some monsters.
Yeah.
They got some guys who can hit I'm not going to waste time on the Athletics.
Speaking
They're
of
a fun
monsters,
team to watch.
We got a monster waiting in the wing. The newest addition of the UCSS family. We're going to bring in our next guest after a quick word from Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV can also be an Xbox? You can turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It is gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. It's available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. And with that, we are thrilled to welcome in Ross Tucker to the show, the host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. You can find him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL, and he is also now a contributor to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Ross, how you doing today? We're thrilled to have you on the team.
I'm doing fantastic. What's up, fellas? How are you guys doing?
Bro, we're pumped to have you part of the roster. I mean, we've I don't know if you're aware, but this show is we're going into our. Are we finishing year 3 or year 2?
Our 3-year anniversary is May 9th.
Okay, that's amazing. But we've really added to our roster, and we've made some really nice additions, and we are extremely pumped to be adding you to the family. So welcome. We look forward to your insights and your expertise throughout the football season. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know that you've probably been talking more about Shadur Sanders the last couple of days than you ever thought you would at any point in your life. But I saw your hit on Patrick. I thought it was tremendous. I want to drill down on – I don't really want to get into the story about, you went there to talk to him and he wasn't available and you went back and all that. I think fans that wanted to see that probably saw that. I want your overview, your 30,000 feet view of the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I really like it. I really like it. I'll tell you why. When I look at the Browns roster right now, I think they're probably – the worst team in the AFC North. and I think that they have an uphill battle to make the playoffs. So for me, I don't see why, guys, they would spend a lot of time, quite frankly, with Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett this year. And I think when you look at the way they drafted and the trade that they made with Travis Hunter to get next year's first-round pick, to get those 2 second-round picks, right? The way I look at it is they're trying to do everything they can to make sure they can find a franchise quarterback. I think it's perfectly reasonable to give Dylan Gabriel 6 or 7 starts this year, Shedeur Sanders 6 or 7 starts this year. Find out what you have with both of those guys. Ideally, one of them looks like they could be the guy, and you're really excited about it. If not, that's why you have the 2 first-round picks next year. It's thought to be a better draft for quarterbacks next year. There's, you guys, I don't know if you talked about the names yet, but Nussmeier and Lenore Sellers and Drew Aller, which I thought was interesting, by the way. On my show this week, Dane Brugler, who's a Northeast Ohio guy, he came on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he said he thinks there's a pretty good chance the Browns would have taken Drew Aller from Penn State this year with the number 2 overall pick, which I live in central Pennsylvania. I watch a lot of Penn State football. That surprises me a little bit. But ultimately, Jay, hopefully this will be the most long-winded answer I ever give in the history of the Ultimate Cleveland Show. But the net result is they're trying to find a quarterback. They have more assets for next year. But I say give Gabriel and Shedeur both a bunch of games this year. Take them for a spin, see what they can do. Hopefully one of them's awesome. If they're not, get the hopefully long-term guy next year.
No, all
Man,
right.
that I was going to ask you about the competition, but looks like you already took care of that for me. Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. I hope you guys have happy trails. But no, I mean, to me, I like the competition. There's been some things in the last couple of years where there's been rumblings where people were just given the jobs in camp, and there was people hurt. We were trying to keep people intact. Talk about a little bit when you do have some competition in camp, because I'm a big competition guy. I want to see everybody compete, whether it's the 2 running backs that they got, Judkins or Dylan Sampson. I'm looking forward to some of this competition and how this competition kind of breed some pieces that you may not have known you had.
Yeah, and by the way, just as an aside, I don't think that the Browns are going to do what I just said about Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders. They might, but my sneaky suspicion is that they would start the year with whoever plays better between Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Perhaps trade one of those guys or the other guy that doesn't win it to a team that wants a better backup quarterback at that point. I think they're not going to go in there and start the year with Dylan Gabriel because they don't want to look at Myles Garrett and look at so many of these guys, Joel Bitonio, and say, yeah, we're going with Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders for your last year, Joel. Good luck. Have fun. I don't really think they're going to do that to start the year. I think they'll give this group a chance to win games, a chance to get off to a good start. But listen, I totally agree. It's the most important position. Andrew Berry said it. Why not put a bunch of different guys in there and give them a chance, see how it shakes out, right? You clearly don't have the long-term guy. At least don't know if you have the long-term guy yet. So I like the chance to see a bunch of those guys starting games this year. The other thing I like, and you guys probably disagree, I don't know, but the way the Browns went about the draft, and in particular the Travis Hunter trade, it tells me that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are operating under the belief that they're going to be there in 2026.
I said the exact same thing, Ross.
Yep.
You don't make that trade. If you think you need to win this year to keep your job, you don't make that trade. You take Travis Hunter.
Yep.
You're not getting the 2026 first round pick for the next guy. You're not trying to put the next GM in a position to succeed.
Right.
So the point I would make is I actually give Jimmy Haslam a lot of credit for that, because I think most owners are more impetuous than this. Listen, the Deshaun Watson trade, nobody had a problem with it, okay? The Saints, the Falcons, all these other teams wanted to do it. The Browns got him. It was a disaster. I actually give Haslam credit for saying, you know what, and maybe it was his idea, I don't know, but for him saying, you know what, I actually think Andrew Berry and Stefanski are good at their jobs and could have these jobs for a long time. They're smart guys. They've done a lot of positive things. The Watson thing was a disaster, but just because the Watson thing was a disaster and they made one horrible decision, whoever made it, we're not getting rid of those guys. I give them a lot of credit for that because that was a very, very smart trade they made in my mind.
Yeah, they got a haul for sure. Overall, we had this discussion earlier. Actually, I'll come back to that. Nick Chubb is an interesting spot right now. I know we're going to talk about this later in our show, but I really wanted to get your thoughts on that. Nick Chubb, if there's ever a guy who has fan base equity and franchise equity, it's Nick Chubb. He's not under contract. The Browns drafted not one but two running backs. Is there a world, Ross, where you see Nick Chubb comes back with this football team? And if so, what do you think he will be a year removed from the ACL?
So I absolutely love Nick Chubb like everybody does. I actually called the U.S. Army Bowl when he was a senior in high school. And by the way, you see him lifting there. The way he looks, guys, I'm not kidding. That's how he looked in high school. Like that's how his body looked. I remember looking at him before the game. I was like, this guy looks like an NFL running back right now. Like, this is what the guys look like. Incredibly impressive.
Look at this.
So that's an interesting thing as it relates to being a year further removed from the injury. I think the Browns would like to move on. I don't think that they believe that Nick will ever get back to where he was. That was a devastating injury that he had occur. And I think that they don't want to have him on the roster, no matter how much he would cost, with fans clamoring for him to be out there.
Right.
I think they want to find kind of the next Nick Chubb, and I think that they think that very possibly could be Quinshon Judkins.
Boy, that video, Mike, that video was all recent, right?
Yeah, these are all recent workout videos from Nick Chubb. Yes.
I just find it hard to bet against that guy. And I know, Ross, what you say is logical.
Well, and Jay, you
he's
know
illogical.
This. Yeah, no, Jay, you know this. Like, just because you can lift a lot of weight, right?
No, I know.
And it's incredibly impressive, that doesn't mean he has the same juice. And I ask you, they probably also think there's an injury risk there, or a re-injury risk, and a little bit of a liability. I'm not saying no, but actions speak louder than words. They haven't re-signed them yet, and they drafted two kids.
Right.
It's pretty clear that they think it's time to turn the page.
Yeah, I agree.
Ross, you can come on every day as far as I'm concerned because you are speaking my language, and I feel like I've been yelling into a forest about trading down, getting the extra pick, quarterback next year. They're not going to be very good this year. I agree with everything you said. It's like a breath of fresh air to finally have somebody agree with me on this. But
what does everybody else think? I mean, like, did everybody else think the Browns are going to the Super Bowl this year? I mean,
well, Ross, that mentality is a rebuild mentality. Yeah, but Ross, that mentality is a rebuild mentality, and it is the smart thing to do. But what are fans, if nothing else? Irrational. We don't want 3 years. We want next year. So we have, and this is our history, we have made it our jobs to rewire our brains to think that, well, if we take a wide receiver at the number 2 spot, suddenly all of our ills are fixed and we're going to win the Super Bowl. That's what Browns fans are. And we need a rational voice in the room. So thank you, and Jason, thank you.
No, and I can appreciate that, okay? Listen, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Nobody's crazier than Eagles fans, right? Like,
yeah, that's a fact.
I get it. Like, I get it, but the Browns recognize you have no shot, especially in the AFC, of really doing anything of consequence until you have at least a top half of the league quarterback, right? It's like, that's why, so it's interesting to compare and contrast you guys and the Steelers, right? The Steelers are waiting for a guy to say he'll play for them that doesn't really want to play, right? Like, if it's May and you don't know if you want to play or not, you don't really want to play. And yet the Steelers are waiting for Rodgers to officially say he'll play. And what is the upside there, guys? Like that the Steelers maybe, I doubt it, by the way, but maybe win a playoff game. I mean, if you've watched them the last couple of years, they're not beating the Bills or the Ravens or the Chiefs and those quarterbacks in the playoff game. So let's talk about the Browns, okay? Let's say that Flacco finds the Stefanski magic from 2 years ago and Flacco plays pretty well. They still have an average roster, so maybe you win 9 games, maybe 10, and make the playoffs and then don't win a game. Is that really what you guys want? I think what you really should want is to do whatever it takes to try to get the franchise quarterback like they did with Watson. It didn't work out. It stinks. I hate it for everybody in Cleveland because I've said forever that you guys are the best fan base in the NFL because there are Browns fans everywhere. You guys are the most insanely loyal people. I mean, to be as loyal and diehard as you are with how little you got. I would love to see your portfolios because you guys get the worst return on investment of your game.
That is the line of the day.
Insert tariff joke there.
Oh, Ross, you nailed us. I don't know how you know the fan base so well. I know you did spend a little bit of time here, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I had a glorious month in Berea, whatever it's called. I got traded there by New England, Belichick, for a conditional 7th round pick. There is no higher honor, by the way, in the NFL. 7th round pick. After LaCharles tore his knee up, I started the last 3 preseason games. I played fine. If I was going to start the opener against Reggie Bush and the Saints in 06, they cut me on final cut day. Didn't keep me as a backup because my salary would have been guaranteed. They traded for Hank Fraley, who had more starts at center than me. And I went into Phil Savage. I'm like, "You're cutting me?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "This better me." I said, "Phil, you traded for an average guy. I came in and I averaged the crap out of my performance. I mean, I was as average can be. And now you're going to cut me? Don't trade for average and then cut me when I delivered, baby. I delivered."
You set the bar, you jump over the bar, you should stay.
Yeah, you can't trade for a guy. He brings exactly what you thought you were trading for, and then you cut him. How does that make any sense?
Ross, we'll just add that chapter to the book, which is 8 volumes, on big career decisions that they went the wrong direction. That's one of many. That the Browns have made a living at doing that. Mike McNuggets has a question for you. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
Ross, outside of the quarterbacks, who was your favorite pick the Browns made in the draft?
Well, so I love Mason Graham, but if you want me, so I'll say I thought the Browns had an awesome draft, right? Like Mason Graham, that is exactly what Schwartz wanted. That's exactly what they needed. I often argue, guys, I think after quarterback, I think D tackle is the second most important position in the NFL.
Wow.
I played O-line. I love O-line. Miles is amazing. Edge rushers. The quarterbacks get it out so quick so often now. They do such a good job of stepping up in the pocket. You need an interior rusher, which hopefully Mason is for them. Everybody I talk to has a man crush on the Schlesinger guy. You know what's crazy? I did UCLA Hawaii for CBS in the season opener last year. He didn't even start. I don't even know where this guy came from.
Wow.
I was talking with this Kane Medrano guy and Oladejo. This guy came out of nowhere, but people love him and have a crush on him. I think it's interesting they took Judkins over Travion Henderson. I would not have done that. But I will say, Fannin, there were a lot of people that were fans of Fannin. So I think it's very reasonable that their first 4 picks all start. You guys look at, and by the way, then they got 2 quarterbacks after that. You look at NFL drafts, it is rare to get 4 starters. And I know Fan is not going to start over Njoku, but I mean like as a 2 tight end set. It is rare to get 4 starting caliber players in one draft. I think it's highly likely that the Browns just did exactly that.
Wow, very impressive. I'm going to bet that it's a Princeton shirt, which is, I believe, where you went to school. But maybe it's a Browns shirt. Yeah, it's a Princeton shirt.
Now, if you guys notice,
I didn't notice. Where's the Browns helmet?
He didn't even get
I
that.
didn't ask for my helmet. I didn't ask for my jersey. I wanted nothing. I didn't actually play a regular season game for them. It's funny, though, because I'm starting next to Andruzzi and Kosi Coleman, and we're playing against quarterback was Charlie Fry. We're playing against like Tommy Harris and Tank Johnson. It's like I played for the Browns against really good players because that's back when guys played in the preseason.
Yeah.
But because I didn't play a regular season game, didn't want my helmet, didn't want my jersey, I don't even bring it up. When people say, what teams did you play for? I say Redskins, Cowboys, Bills, Patriots. I don't even mention the Browns. Didn't exist.
All right, cool. I noticed you got 2 Redskins helmets back there.
I like that.
I mean, now.
Yeah, so that one, the one, I can't even, which direction am I pointing? Okay, that one over there, that
was
one
a cool
is
helmet.
Gosh, why am I, whatever. So that is the coolest helmet I think I've ever worn. The old school Redskins, like reunion helmet or whatever, anniversary helmet, kind of looks like Florida State almost.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Like
You're right.
Jorgensen, Billy Kilmer Redskins. That helmet's sweet.
Very good. Ross, we're pumped to have you, man. We can't wait for the football season to get going and have your insight. Of course, he agrees with Jason on everything. He's Ivy League educated. He's a Princeton guy. He's smart.
Ivy League and MAC, Princeton and Kent State. They're one and 1A.
I think Kent State is the Princeton of Ohio.
hey, I did. So first of all, I'm just glad you guys. I was listening before I came on the show. I'm just glad you didn't ask me if Arias was going to be the shortstop. I have no idea who Arias is. Okay? but Jason thinks he'll be the shortstop by June, so I'm all in on Arias. Okay?
There you go.
I'm with Jason.
You're smart to know what you don't know.
Last year, I did a Maction game last year. I did the Akron-Kent State game.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
On a Tuesday night. I forget what it's called, like the wagon wheel or something. Yeah,
The wagon wheel. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
wagon wheel game. And sorry, Jay, but Akron bashed your brains in, bro.
Well, when I was there, they didn't win a game.
You
They
missed.
didn't last year either.
You missed the real MAC team. You should have watched the Bobcats. So you don't need to mess with Bowling Green and
It's an
Kent
all-MAC
Akron.
panel. I forgot.
It is.
It
This
is
is
an
the
all-MAC
all-MAC panel. I'm
Hey,
Bowling Green.
I gotta ask
Bush
you,
is
I gotta
on
ask you
you.
something. Serious question. Yesterday, I went to my niece's senior game, lacrosse. Okay, she's going to Miami, Ohio.
Oh,
all right?
great school.
I've done a decent amount of MAC games. Miami, Ohio is pretty sweet.
Oh,
Like,
phenomenal.
Their campus is
I'm
incredible.
and take this the right way, but like I would imagine if a kid gets offered by every MAC school, most of them go to Miami. Like that
They're
place
not-
is like
Yeah.
I turned Miami was my first offer I had turned it down. I went to OU.
Wow. Did you visit the campus?
Yeah, I was there. Shout out to Oxford though. They got
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
They got
Miami. The scenery at Miami is
they got
outstanding.
prospects. They got
Ross,
first rounders down there.
We got to run. We got to hit a break. Great having you. We can't wait for the season. Thanks, brother.
all right, see you boys.
See you.
Thank you.
The collective IQ of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show just shot through
Just
the roof.
tripled.
It went way through the roof. Now we got Jason and Ross.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you got the bottom feeders
Yeah.
all down
Okay.
here.
All right, we got to
Very
get some
good.
super chats in here, guys. First off is from Curtis Thomas, who says, "Boys, I love the show. Could you guys give my girl a shout out? She also loves the show and just got the social work job she wanted at the VA. So shout out to Curtis's girl."
Shout out to her and the VA as well, man. Appreciate you.
Ben Stone says, NIH/NFS gutted, Ohio SB1 choking science education. Maybe Ohio State should cut football with fun research. Time to choose brains over touchdowns. Thoughts?
That probably won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so either.
Jacob M14 says, I like how Max Strus was picking up Hero full court, putting pressure on him throughout the series. Do you think he'll do the same with Halliburton? Yes, I fully anticipate Max getting the Halliburton draw. They run a ton of pick and rolls, so they're going to have to fight over that. So hopefully they don't get caught in too many switches, but I would expect Max to be picking up Halliburton full court. He's him says, Pretentious NFL media clutching their pearls, shaming Jax Olbrich's character for for a playful prank when 77% of players they glorified have been arrested.
Shut up.
What?
Shut up.
Remo Sensei says Dion didn't push for his jersey retirement. It was the AD. Shedeur broke over 100 records at Colorado and played receiving no NIL money from the school. And Topo42 says
Wait,
Jay.
he had NIL money.
Well, none of the NIL money comes from
None of
schools.
it comes from the school.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's crazy to say that.
It does next year.
I know it does, but prior
Not
this
this
year,
year. Yeah.
prior to last year, rather, he didn't get it from the school.
Topo42 said, Jay, the Rams had 14 picks the year they drafted Puka. They got lucky, bound to hit on one.
Yeah.
With that amount of options.
You're
it's
right.
a broken record, bad example.
No, it's a great example. Where was he drafted?
I'll look up the number right now. Hold
Sixth
on.
round. You don't need to look it up. I'll tell you, Puka Nacua, 6th round.
That also means
I don't care if they had 100 picks.
That also
they
means
got one in the 6th round. That is
also
a Pro
means
Bowl player.
Every other team
Jay,
passed
the
on him
fifth,
too.
Jay, 5th round.
Okay, 5th round.
177.
Same as Shedeur. That's 33 picks below.
177.
Wait, 177 is 5th round?
Yeah.
Compensatory picks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. So technically,
No, technically a 5th. You can't try to weasel your way in.
no, but if you do the numbers on 32 times 5,
Okay, sure.
well, I mean,
But he's technically a 5th. You're right and wrong at the same time.
No, I am. It's a technicality, and it's just in the verbiage. But here's my point. They got him there. They got him with pick 177. So there is value that you can find at 144. That's why I hate when you say, hey, nothing to lose, man. Just draft him and take a chance. I get it, but you might have had another player.
We have about 30 seconds before we head over to KYC, but the Spurs have hired Mitch Johnson, the team's head assistant, to take over for Pop as the head coach. Jason, do you know or are you familiar with Mitch Johnson whatsoever?
Not much, no.
If he's a Pop guy, and he clearly
He was
is,
his head assistant.
Yeah,
he's lead
I think
assistant.
that's the way Pop would want to go with this.
Yep.
So
If I was making that hire, I'd call Wemby. I say, Victor, who do you want to be the next head coach? And I'm sure he signed off on Mitch Johnson, and Mitch Johnson will now take over for Greg Popovich. But we got to go. We'll see you on WKYC Plus and Channel 3 in 3 minutes on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Peace.